The jump from GCSEs to A-levels can be quite tough, so here's 4 things that will give you a serious head start over everyone else. The first thing I want to talk about is what A-levels or sixth form is actually like. Most students take 3 subjects, which actually equates to 3 lessons a day on average. With the other 2 hours in your day, they are known as your frees, in which you can do whatever you want. Now this might sound obvious, but it's essential to use this free time wisely. These frees are an excellent opportunity to get homework done or make your revision material. And with just 3 subjects, a lot of students initially think that it's going to be easier to manage and keep on top of their work compared to GCSEs. But trust me, don't underestimate how demanding A-levels can be. You'll need to manage your time carefully. So before you spend that time chatting or scrolling, consider what work needs to get done. Also at GCSE, a lot of students could get away with just memorizing their notes or relying on mark schemes to get through exams. That approach still works to an extent for A-levels, but it's much less effective overall. The focus at A-level is much more on understanding concepts and applying knowledge. In terms of my own experience, I decided to take 4 subjects. The main issue I found was that it was mentally challenging. I knew that I would have to study more and that I would have fewer frees, and that's something that sort of played on my mind at times. And something else you should know is that people talk about the jump from year 11 to year 12, but I found that there was a much bigger jump between year 12 and year 13. That's just something to be aware of. Now let's talk about how I changed my revision strategy and how you could too going into A-levels. Think back to how you revised for your GCSEs. Was it through notes, flashcards, or cramming the night before an exam? Whatever your method was, my advice is simple. Start doing it earlier. If you started revising the day before an exam before, start to begin revising a week before. If you made flashcards just before mocks, try creating them as you go through topics instead. The earlier you start, the less overwhelming it becomes. Notes work best for me. At GCSE, I used to make notes a few days before a topic test, but in A-levels, I started making my notes in the same week I learned the topic. So for example, if I was taught atomic structure and chemistry during the first week, I'd make my notes by the weekend. This is important because one of the biggest challenges students face at A-level is falling behind. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from this video, it's the following. Set aside a small amount of time each weekend to make revision material on what you've learned that week. That's it. Just a simple habit of consistency alone will build your understanding over time, and it will make revision before exams a lot easier. Before any topic test or end of unit test, I'd also revise using practice questions, either from the textbook or websites like Physics and Maths Tutor. And finally, when you get your test back, don't just check the grade and move on. Look at where you went wrong and go back to your notes to fill in any gaps in understanding. This step really helped me improve over time. And by the way, I'm Soumya, and if you have any study related questions, I'll be in the comments and I'll get back to you quite quickly. The next thing I want to talk about are the resources I use to get top grades, because if you know what to use from the start, it will get you ahead. I studied biology, chemistry, physics and maths. For the sciences, I mainly used PMT to make my notes and answer questions. If I ever got stuck or needed extra explanation, I used YouTube videos. These were the channels that I found most useful for each of the subjects I took. Textbooks were helpful too, especially for biology where the detail really matters. And for maths, I recommend Maths Genie for questions and walkthroughs. If you're not thinking about these subjects, then I would recommend searching something like this up on YouTube and see what other students used for resources. And you also want to think about organization. A lot of students used folders, and they're good, but they didn't fully work for me. What I did instead was use a notepad for each subject, and I'd use this to make my notes. And then I'd keep everything else in a folder, like PowerPoints, topic tests, question packs, and worksheets. But once my folder began getting heavier over time, I'd sort of empty my folder out at the end of the term or during the holidays, and I'd make summary mind maps from what I removed. So I'd make a mind map on any PowerPoints, for example, which not only helped me keep organized, but it also helped me to revise. For the things I did take out of my folder, I just piled them up at home. The last thing I want to go through is some general advice. And honestly, this might be one of the most important parts of the video. So the first piece of advice is about uni applications. I know it will seem a bit far, but I think you should know that this is one of the most stressful parts of sixth form for me. Between the end of year 12 and March of year 13, there's a lot of things that hit you at once, like writing a personal statement, possible entrance exams, also interviews for certain courses or unis. And that time period is quite intense. You might feel overwhelmed, and that's completely normal. Just being aware of it now puts you in a better position than most students. Something else for you to consider is starting extracurriculars, because they would be useful for any applications you do in the future. You could even start this summer to get ahead. These are the things that I included in my uni application for a bit of inspiration. You also want to learn how to manage your time, because that will help you manage your workload. As I said, you need to have some responsibility in your frees. I'm not saying work every hour you have free, because some of the best memories were just messing messing about in these hours, but the key is balance. When you're in school, think to yourself what work you can get done now so you have free time at home. A few little things help me to stay on track, like using headphones, having a battery pack or charger in my bag, and also having a planner or to-do list to see what deadlines were coming up. And I could also use this to plan when I would work. And one more thing that I think all of you should do when you're in a lesson is to clarify anything you do not understand. Some concepts can be difficult to grasp at first, but you have to be proactive. I always ask my teachers when I was confused on a topic or a question, because when you understand something, you will be able to apply that information to questions. And now that you've got a head start on what sixth form is really like, the next step is knowing how to actually revise for A levels properly. The exact strategies that help me get top grades are covered in this video here.